What is going on, everyone? We are here for week 5 of the Ferrari Challenge GT3 Track Guide series. This week we are at Motorland Aragon, and yeah, it's a cracker of a circuit. So we actually did this circuit last season in the 488, so if you want to check that video out, that'll be just up there. But yeah, so there is quite a few differences again between the two cars. Obviously we sort of talked about it a little bit at Spa earlier in the season. Just definitely I'm noticing more towards the gear ratio stacks in the two cars. It's quite different, and I'm using lower gears here than I would have in the 488 as well, so it is quite an interesting comparison. So yeah, make sure you check out both guides and see what you think the differences are as well. But for me, I definitely found that the car had a lot more understeer in it compared to the last time we were here. I felt like I was chasing the tail of the car quite a bit. So yeah, very interesting. So want to thank everybody for subscribing to the channel, liking videos, watching every week. It means a lot, guys. So we got some cool new content ideas coming, so hopefully you guys will enjoy those. And yeah, let's get into week 5 at Motorland Aragon in the Ferrari. Alright guys, so now we're going to break down the lap. So as you're coming down into turn 1, you want to be as close to the right hand side as possible. You're looking for just before the 100 board. You'll see the white line that's directly in line. So your nice big brake pressure here. So it seems very late into the corner, but you can actually use quite a lot of apex entry here. So by braking quite deep, we can actually rotate the car early as well. So 5th gear, back to 2nd gear we're using. And then I want to turn in just past the 50 meter board. So I'm turning in probably more towards the orange bollards, or the orange coping on the end of the Armco fence, just past the 50 meter board. So it's right here. So you're probably looking at about 40 meters, 35 meters. From that point there, turn the car in, and you'll see you want to get the car between that little sleeping policeman, like, curb. I don't know, it looks more like a little bollard sort of just sticking out of the ground ever so slightly. So, but you can use all this on the inside, so get right up on the curb, use the car to rotate second, come off the curb. The car's still going to push quite a lot because of the angle of the corner as it comes out. Get close to the curb, up to third. You're going to hug it tight through this part here on the curbing till you get in line with the cone. the blue cone, then you can let the car start to track out wide. You're going to use all the circuit here. And then as you're coming up the hill, up to 4th gear, you're going to turn in. So you sort of like shift to 4th, and then you turn in just sort of halfway through the cones, just before the end of the curb. So at this point here. And then I sort of like, I wouldn't say a lift, but I just sort of hesitate on the throttle as I'm getting to the apex here. And I want to clip the apex right at this point, just past that little sleeping policeman. That way I can use just a little bit more curb on the back half here as I come through the corner. Car's going to track wide. You want to sort of try and keep it to mid-track the best you can, so that when you come off, you can sort of start to diagonal yourself back towards the right to really open up the next corner. This one's a flat approach on the entry in, so you turn in just at the end of the Armco. There's like a gap in the wall where the coloured tyre bundles or the safer barrier or whatever they use here disappears. You turn in just at the start of that. 4th gear, you're going to diagonal the car. So as soon as you clip that apex, you want to head straight for that like little catch fence, the little orange barrier off in the distance. So you diagonal across back to 2nd gear. You want to get to the curb just at this point here. So right where it's sort of like 4 red squares to go. By the time you get to 3 red squares, you want to be turning back at the apex. So it's like diagonaling, clip the apex, clip the curb on the outside, and then turn the car back in at the corner. You want to get as close to this curb as possible. You can actually run 2 tyres up on the little red sausage part a little bit. It helps with rotation. It does tend to leave you a little bit of loss of traction on the exit, but it does help quite a lot with rotation if you're struggling to get the car to rotate. Car's going to push wide here. You're going to set yourself on the middle. Up to 3rd, you're going to flat through this bit, and then you're going to start tracking out to the outside. You want to brake just before the 50 metres, so it's 2 red squares for me before the 50 metres. 3rd gear, back to 2nd, and then I go back to 1st. Now, the reason I'm going 1st here is just for the extra rotation. I'm really struggling to get the car to turn in and stay on the track on the inside here, so I want to just use a little bit of extra rotation and then short shift to 2nd. So turn in 2 red squares from the end of the curb, turn the car in, clip the apex right at the end of the sausage curb. So right at this point here, you'll see the car will straighten up a lot quicker. Up to 2nd as you drive out of the corner. Use all the curb. I'm finding that as long as I get back on there by the end of that green and white little curb behind the red and yellow one, I'm fine. Back on the circuit. Up to 3rd. You're braking just before the 50 metre board. Back to 2nd. Turn the car in. 3 red squares from the end, but as you can see, I've already started to diagonal the car. The reason I do that is just the way the road cambers in, so I'm sort of like preparing myself, so I turn in early to just help with rotation, and then I can find that groove easier when I hook the car in. So back to 2nd here, turn in 3 red squares from the end. Use a little bit of curb here. The car's going to sort of come off at this trajectory here, just past that sort of like power pole. You sort of just come back past. I actually aim, so I look for the power pole, then once I know I'm there, then I start to aim for the orange tyre Armco at the end on this side, and I sort of diagonal the car down. 2nd back to 1st, turn the car in at this point here. Now there's no real marker here, that's the only problem, but what you want to do is you want to get the car into the gully, because you can see it cambers down, and it's kind of like a bit of a roller coaster in here. You want to get the car to hook in and follow the car the whole way around. Car's going to drift off as you pick the throttle up, run right to the edge of the road. 2nd, now I follow the curb, so as the curb ends I start to turn in. And then I wrap the car in. I lift here to get the car to stay on the circuit. I use all the curb on the inside of the track. And when I say a lift, it's not like a big lift. It's like a hesitant. It's maybe like 100 back to like 75, 80, and then back into it. It's just enough to make sure the car stays on this side of the track. The car's going to come off of there, run all the way out to the edge of the road. Up through the gears to 4th. You're going to stay to the right hand side as much as possible. You're looking for the start of the curb. This nice big brake pressure here. Fourth, back to second. I turned the car in a little bit early here, so I'm turning in about 4 red squares from the end. So as I get there, so at this point now, I start to turn the car at the corner. I use quite a lot of curb on the inside. The car's still going to push it a lot. You're going to end up like at this point here. Up to third. Turn the car through this point. Use all this curb on the inside. Let the car track right out to the edge of the road. You brake at the start of the cones or just before it. So I'm actually braking just as these two curbs sort of merge here. This is where I brake from third back to second. I turn down into the corner at the end of the cones. So right now, turn the car in at the corner. Lots of curb on the inside. Now you want to slow in this one so you can really maximize your exit onto this back straight. So I try and like wash off a bit more speed here so that I can get a really good drive. I go back to first gear. I turn in from the second cone and really I don't really have a turn in point, but as long as I'm in line with the second cone, I turn in first. I use all the curb on the inside, get as close to that little bollard on the inside of the curb as possible, pick the throttle up. The car's going to push a tiny little bit. We're going to use all the curb on the exit, and up through the gears we go. We're going to go all the way to fifth gear. So coming down, we're looking for the 150 board, which you can use the 150 board, or you can actually use just past it at the start of the curb. Now you've got to be really careful at this next corner. I'm even having quite a lot of problems just getting the car to rotate here, and I'm bleeding probably 3/10 here myself personally. So brake at the start of the curb, nice big brake pressure all the way back to first gear as you come in. Now the trick here is you really want to focus on the drive out. So I'm turning in from about 3 red squares, and I'm trying to roll the center but rotate it so I can come off the curb as naturally as possible. But the car just has this tendency to want to push quite a lot mid-corner. So I want to try and get the car to rotate, and I want to set myself up in the middle of the track. So that is the actual goal. You might get front sort of a lot of understeer on entry, or you'll get the car to rotate, and then when you pick the throttle up, it'll snap on you and it'll give you like a really sort of flick snap oversteer as well. So you've just got to be careful of that corner. That's probably the hardest corner to actually get the drive or the bite into the corner. So sort of set myself up in the middle, up to second gear, turn in, use a little bit of curb here. That one sort of has a tendency to over rotate the car, and you sort of step out as well. So you got to be careful through there. Once you get to this point here, the car's going to run sort of right to the edge of the road, be in the middle, up to third. You can hold it flat through this one, a little bit of curb, let it run right to the edge of the road. And there you go, guys. That is your walkthrough track guide of Motorland Aragon in the 296 Ferrari GT3. For week 5 of the track guide series. I hope this has helped you. Good luck for your week of racing, and we will see you next week for week 6.